All right. One of the most lonely and painful times in my life was the little over 2 years I spent in Romania. But God used that to shape me and has made, he's brought some beautiful fruit from it, not only in my life, but in the lives of some others that we've partnered with and stuff like that since then. If you look around you, some of the greatest people, some of the most deep people in your life that you've met are people who've gone through struggles at one level or another, health issues, financial issues, relationship issues, loss. And it's because God never wastes our pain. He takes our pain and uses it to shape us. Our winter speaker series was based on the idea that, yes, 2020 was a terrible, destructive year in many ways, but God promises that if we will let Him, He can take the ashes in our lives and turn them into something beautiful. We've heard some pretty amazing stories during this series. Escape and persecution from Nazis, from Muslims, from communism, family death and reunions and adoptions, church abuse, drug abuse, relationship abuse, cancer survivors, cancer loss. And despite so much pain, oh, so much beauty came from it. There were many Sundays where many of us were in tears, not tears of pain, but tears of joy, as we saw the hand of God moving in the lives of these brothers that we had talked about. Each one of these people leaned into the way that God had shaped them and trusted their creator, that the way he had shaped them had purpose, had meaning. And they watched as they leaned into that shape, as they watched the ashes of their lives be transformed into beautiful things through sculptures and paintings and songs and books and laughter and such beautiful, beautiful stories that may never be written down, but as they are told, brought us all to the foot of Jesus. We end each message on Sunday mornings with the phrase, now what? And before we jump back into our study in the Gospel of John, I wanted us to do a series, Now What? Then I want after that to be a little bit strategic with you and consider the year that lies ahead of us, 2021. What could it look like when life begins to return to some sort of normal? What do we want our normal to look like? What do we want our normal to be when we return to it? And here's the key question. Are we prepared to return to that? Are we ready to get into that? So first, I want to spend some time, and I would love to hear if or which one of these stories, which one of the moments that you heard from, I tried to put their faces behind you so you can be reminded of some of the stories that we've heard. Which one of their stories touched you? Which one of their comments, what thing is still ringing in your mind from some of those stories? Was it Joshua Aaron's family story of adoption and reunion? And was it Nathan Anderson's trauma at the hands of church leaders, another pastor, or maybe his battle with cancer? Or Azad's story of escape and the challenge that he brought to us to use the gifts that God's given us? Or his translator, if you remember his translator, Steve, had that powerful story about his cousin, the death of his cousin, how God was using that. Or Dan Chang, remember the beauty of that, the stories of his relationships with his father and his wife, and how those shaped those beautiful objects that come from his hands. Or Nazareth's story of salvation and the amazing story about how he met his wife. Those are powerful, powerful stories. So what I'd love for you to do right now is the way we do it in our prayer time. If you feel like, I'd love to hear from all of us, but some of you may be too shy to share. But if you want to just unmic yourself and just go ahead and start sharing, or if you want to raise your hand, I can call you there too. But I'd love to hear what God is doing in you. What's the now what that is coming out of this series for you? John, Brother John.
Well, collectively, those different perspectives basically help to reinforce. All too often in secular world, the focus is on you're different or you're this or you're that, something other than a Christian identity.
Mm,
And we tend to stumble over that more than anything else. It showed me that we're uniquely made by God, but we have that commonality and that relationship and the love of God that guides us all, and that He uses no matter what happens. He uses it for His purpose and His glory.
yeah, amen. Very good. Who else?
Alex wants to share something.
Oh, yes. Go for it, Alex.
Thanks. One thing that stuck out to me with almost all of these speakers is that their path was not straight. The way that God led them was not, from A to B, but it was, very winding and took them in a lot of directions they had not anticipated. And I had touched on this before, but that personally for me gives me a lot of hope. Just knowing that the point at which I start may not necessarily be directly correlated the point at which I end. And knowing that God will kind of take me on an adventure and give me a variety of experiences really gives me a lot of hope for the future.
Very cool. Is that comforting to you that the journeys you saw were not straight lines?
It is. Yeah.
Very good. Awesome. Blanton's.
First was with Ahmed. And what our country has gone through since November, to hear his
We're having a hard time hearing. It's your audio is doing that thing again.
better now.
Yeah.
Ahmed was talking about the different threats that he was receiving and everything that he was dealing with in a very real, very substantial way. And just where we were as a country and where we are as a country, where we specifically are as Christians and followers of Christ, it just hit home in a different, very real way when I was hearing him say it. And then to follow that up with Don Chen, the artist, it was just this beautiful tapestry of how God is using so much, I want to say, pain and discomfort to shape this incredible, just in, who we are as Christians. And when Don was talking about the hands that were coming up, and he was describing the hands, and then he said that as he was finishing and he was looking at it, he found another set of hands that was at the bottom of it. It was just,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, even now I get emotional just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because it was such a powerful statement that wherever we're planning and whatever we're doing and whatever we put our hands to work at, God's hands are the ones that are giving us the strength.
Wow. I just got goosebumps again. Yeah. So beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for reminding us that. Yeah. So we had so many great and beautiful things. It's hard. That's why I wanted to take time to be reminded of those things. So that was good. Tabs, did you have something too? Nope. Okay. And Costa Mesa.
I think that's me. I don't know that it says Costa Mesa. Anyway, I want to tag after what Alex said because I was thinking along the same lines that as a young person, Alex said that he sees all these different twists and turns ahead of him. I've seen as an older person twists and turns behind me, but I also see them ahead of me.
Mm.
So I don't see that it ends. And I guess that's a good thing. It's sometimes frustrating, but when you hear other people's stories, it does remind you that everybody does have a story.
Yeah.
And listening to, and if we really listen to what they say, there are parts that we can relate to, and some we would have never thought possible. So being on the different ends of the spectrum, Alex, and the other end, and I think Lois probably understands what I'm saying, right, Lois?
Yeah, right.
So to those of you on the other end of the spectrum, here would be my question to you based on kind of what, you know, Alex has said. He's found some swerves in the path so far, and he's trusting that God has been, you know, is going to use that, and it's okay. So for those of you who look back on some of the curving in your paths or twisting and turning in your paths, do you see the hand of God in those, or do you see them as being random?
Oh, absolutely the hand of God. And I'm probably the farthest along the spectrum, Georgia. But following up on what Jeff said, the vision of the hands being supported by the hands, and Dan used the word sustaining that came to him when he saw that God was sustaining. And I have thought of that so many times just in the past couple of weeks since we heard him. So yeah, I'm emotional again.
Isn't that beautiful how a word that's so common, but in the context of a story of God's provision becomes something that I don't want to use the negative connotation here, but almost haunts you for a while.
Almost what?
Haunts you.
Yeah.
It rides with you for a while on your shoulder. And that's kind of what I'm looking for is what were those? I didn't think of words but it is words. It's words, it's stories. Some people it's pictures. Some of you may have been struck by one of his pieces and the beauty of one of his pieces. So I'd love to hear those things. So I think Keziah was up next.
Yeah, so I've been reading the chronological Bible in a year with Lois and Jordan, and this ties in really well to what I've been noticing through all these stories, is that like God promises Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all of them, he promises them that they will be a blessing for others, that God's blessing to them won't be just for them, but that it will be for everyone around them. And continually people are trusting them. Pharaoh trusts Joseph with basically all of Egypt, because he sees how successful he is and how God has blessed him. And that happens over and over and over again in the Bible. And we see that in the stories of these people. I mean, even with like Dan Chen and his work, and I'm in Santa Barbara and I know where that casino is. I know a lot of the racial tension, the historical tension of how the Chumash people here have been mistreated and how their stories have been forgotten. And that's something that our school talks about and the community talks about on a regular basis. And to know that he's the one who did those statues that were a huge deal here was amazing. And to know that, you know, that was a big part of racial reconciliation for our community up here. And he got to bless our community because of his faithfulness to God and his faithfulness to how God was leading him. And even with Nazareth and with Joshua, Aaron, like they're all being recognized and trusted by the wider community because of how God has blessed them. And I just think that's so cool that people recognize what is good and what is pure and what is lovely. And they see that and they see the blessing in our lives and they trust that and they want part of that. And it's an encouragement that it's good, that God is good, that we've kind of got that part of it right, that God's the one in charge of all of this. But also hopeful too that if we are faithful, he is providing blessings, but also that we are blessing blessing other people. And I think that's just a really cool thing with all of their stories that we got to see.
Very cool. Leroy has a hard time getting into us with audio, but he put in the chat room, being in the middle of a long season of twists it's very reassuring to me to be reminded of what the greener pastures look like, how the struggles are used to birth something new and useful. So that's beautiful. Thank you, Leroy, for doing that. You are an inspiration. You're an ongoing inspiration for all of us. So thank you for your faithfulness. Don and Mary.
Yeah, as I look at these pictures, I see overcomers, people that have gone through their lives or are going through their lives, and they keep overcoming. And I've had the opportunity to die, 3 or 4 times in my life. And afterwards, I'm kind of surprised that I didn't. But I also say to the Lord, you must have more for me to do. And why did you save me from that? And I saw that in almost all of those, that they would come up against something that they couldn't deal with, or they could die. And they just kept on going. What do you have next for me to do, Lord? And so that's my prayer, is just that next is clear for me.
Wow.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Raymond and Laura, good morning.
All of them are so touching to me, but the one who I can remember very good is Lathan Anderson. He's the one who has a lot of sickness, and then during the downtime, he still did not lose the sensitivity of the Lord's calling. He not only not lose it, and he worked on it. He's under chemo, and at that time the body condition suppose is really bad. You will have a nausea, have a lot of problem, but he respond to the God. That is really encouraged to me. No matter God put me in what condition, it will have to have the faithfulness to respond to God, to the Lord, and do His work joyfully. It's encouraged to me. It's so good.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding us of that. We've talked about this before, but so often we see people that came from exactly the kinds of situations we saw in all of these people, right? And they turn and they say, Lord, why me? They shake their fist and they walk away from him. And yet each one of these here embraced the pain, right? Could have walked away from it. Could have walked away for any one of them, and yet they trusted God in the midst of it, and because of that, were able to experience some beauty. And man, that's powerful.
Yeah.
That's good ointment for all of our souls.
I
don't know how often when something goes wrong, the first thing that comes out of people's mouth is, Lord, why me? Folks, we live in a broken world. We're lucky it's not worse. I think that's any blessings, we should be asking the blessings in our lives, why me? Not the curses. The curses and all the bad stuff, that stuff is just because we live in a broken world. But why me comes from why the blessing, not why the bad stuff. And so, yeah. Thank you for reminding us of that, Laura. Who else?
Raymond.
Oh, Raymond. Okay.
Yeah, I want to share that too. This week in DNA, we were reading John about Jesus make the blind person see again. And then all these story reminded, that verses we were reading is the blind person said, worshiper of God and does his will, God listens to him. So they have the trust that God listens. Not only that, and just like the story in John, that all these people give all the glory back to God and able to proclaim God's name. So that was not only just their life, but also the way they continuously proclaiming, glorify God's name. That was beautiful.
Yes, right. Wow. Yeah, that's so key. So good. And I love that Nazareth brought it right back to the gospel at the very end. I loved that he just, no matter how much he made us laugh, he brought us right back to Jesus. That was so, so beautiful. Tina.
I think Deanne was before.
Oh, okay, Deanne.
That's okay. That's okay. I just have been so blessed with all of these, and I love their demonstration of patience and perseverance through all their trials. And the one that keeps coming back to me over and over, though, is Dan Chen, because obviously he's so visual with what he does, and it just makes me think that when we are fully leaning into the Lord, that he may show us what we don't even maybe see ourselves is our gift to each other. So, and also with Georgette's comment and Lois, I have always loved the fact that the Lord will not waste anything. And so no matter where we are in our lives, he will use every ounce that we will give him. And like a drink offering, we can pour out, but it's leaning into him and what he is going to do. So I just thank you for all of, exposing those to us. They're just amazing. And they're very encouraging, all of them very encouraging.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'll encourage you with this. Part of this series came from, I've been in conversation with an organization that's up in Oregon that has traveling galleries of art from different Christian artists. And they try and bring in a full gospel in the different kinds of art from the artists. So it's kind of a gallery version of what we've been hearing. You don't hear the artist as much. It'll come out in some of the art pieces, but we're trying to bring this living gallery to Orange as a way of presenting the beauty of our Creator and His creation to the city of Orange. So be praying for that. If you want to be a part of that, then let me know and I'll put you on that list. Tina now.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. So what was interesting to me, just having grown up in our, school education, academic system, so much importance is placed on how are my gifts going to get me to a place where I earn enough money to sustain myself in society. And so all my life, I kind of look through that lens, but it's kind of cool to see that for the most part, all of these people were just being obedient and pressing into their gifts, not for the sake of, is that going to make me enough money, but just, really embracing and pursuing those gifts. And then that's the part where it's like, all these things will be added to you as well. So that was kind of cool and encouraging. And then also just that the risk that you take when you are living out your gifts and your purpose in Christ, that it's not, for this, it's again goes back to obedience. It's not that all these people that are in my life are going to be saved because of it, but I'm just being obedient and planting seeds, and God's going to do the rest. And so that was a pretty cool encouragement too.
Very cool motivation. Yeah, they had some very diverse motivation in all the things they did, right? But Jesus was right at the center of it. Very nice. Anyone else? Is your heart beating out of your chest and it's something you've been wanting to say and Holy Spirit's pushing you and you want to share it with us now? Now's your opportunity.
Carolyn has her hand.
Oh, okay.
Just simply two things. When I think about the testimonies of how everyone shared with us, and I overlay it with all the testimonies that I still have yet to hear with our own church family, I was encouraged by God at work in each of our lives and through that pain. through the story of what brought us face planted before the Lord as he redeemed us. And that just really has overwhelmed me. And then the other piece is that the second is coming away. So just, I guess peace is the word. And the verse that keeps coming through is, I was listening to each one of them, is in trust. I put my trust, my trust is in God alone. That's who I put my trust in, and that our identity is not in all those gifts or anything, but the way that God uses that. And Deanne just said it, to bless others. Like, we're at peace. We know whose we are, and just the beauty of that. So I'm encouraged by these faithful people that are loving people where they're at, and then juxtaposed with our Beacon family and how each one of us is in unique places to love people that he specifically puts in our laps with the gifts and talents that we have. It really encouraged me, especially in the workplace, just to be faithful and to seek the Lord, and to continue to put trust in him alone.
It's crazy what different career paths God can use for ministry, right? Comedy. I mean, that's probably, if I had to pick from all of them, that's the one that I would have had the hardest time seeing as a ministry. But wow, does he do a great job? And obviously we've seen art and stuff like that too. So that's really cool. Anyone else before we move on? Pumping hearts. Julie? We're still muted. Oops.
Yeah, I'm a very visual person. And so Dan Chan definitely have an impact on me, because I saw his artwork, and I remember very clearly. And I think it's at his lowest point. And I think one sculpture, I think that I don't know, he did not, he saw the light shine at the top of that sculpture.
The crucifixion.
And wow, that's very powerful. That's very powerful for me. And that kind of remind me, when we have a group study on the Genesis, the chapter 1, they said that the first day they have light. And then also, I think the fourth day also have the light of like a physical light, like sun and moon.
Yes.
And so I think sometimes the light of our Lord can be, you can see it. Sometimes it's not necessary to, but the light is there. And then God can use all the different way to show he is caring God. And so, I just even right now think about the Katie, that new baby, just a few days, and God's carrying that baby.
Wow.
And just like, when I mentioned, when Evans mentioned 2 little kids got a fever during the, when they have the COVID. I don't know, that really hit me. And that is the most scary time. And when Evan says, he got a COVID, I said, oh, he's strong enough. And the baby, when he mentioned baby got a fever, I don't know. I mean, and even one high school friends, they said, kids have a fever. That's a small thing. And why you are so worried? And that kind of, I think one day when I walk in the backyard, and her question coming, why I'm so worried? And then all of a sudden I realized when Evan was a little baby, and not a little baby, when he was like maybe grade school, and he constantly have a high fever for a few days. And that, I was so scared. And then, when that hit me, and I said, boy, God was with me when Evan have a fever. And then God can be with Evan and Joshua and Lisa and Caleb. And that kind of really comforting.
Wow.
Yeah, because that's like when you're looking back for the truth, and you know God was there, and now He's always with us.
Yeah.
So
One of your winding paths. Yeah, that's beautiful. Very good.